For an entire generation, people have experienced Star Wars the only way it's been possible, on the TV screen. But if you've only seen it this way, you haven't seen it at all.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
We've been waiting for you.
The force is strong here, even stronger than the coffee.
Welcome to Coffee with Kenobi. Here are your hosts, Dan Z and Cory Club.
Hello, this is Dan Z, and welcome to show number 23 of Coffee with Kenobi, a Star Wars podcast that analyzes our favorite saga in a whole new way. With me is my good friend and co-host, Cory Club.
Hey everybody, be sure to check out our San Diego Comic-Con special edition show with Coffee with Kenobi blogger Troy Metzler and Jeff McGee, as we discuss all things happening at the annual event. Make sure to catch our next episode of A Cup of Clone Wars with special guests Lair Malmid of the IndieCast and Chris Hamilton of Star Wars KidCast. We're making our way through the Season 6 of the Emmy Award-winning series, and the latest episodes features the Jar Jar Binks and the Mace Windu arc. A big thank you to everyone who liked and shared our Facebook page and helped us get over 2,000 likes. We're grateful for this awesome Star Wars community.
In today's show, we are happy to share a cup of coffee with Adam Bray, author of Star Wars Rebels, The Visual Guide. Adam will be discussing his work on the book, as well as his collaboration with the creative forces behind the upcoming series. We also discuss Celebration Anaheim and Dave Filloni news, the Disney theme park presence, the Rebels preview, and we have the next offering of your Espresso Shot with a Bearded Trio with Rob Wainfer.
We'll also update you with Coffee with Kenobi t-shirt news and introduce our topic for show number 24. And now, let's see what's brewing in the Star Wars universe this week.
Oh, wait. This is interesting.
You found something.
Our first news story has to do with Celebration Anaheim coming out next year. We're all looking forward to that, especially all the fantastic guests. We've had some great ones so far. James Arnold Taylor will be there. All kinds of fun things going on as things start ramping up for that. But today they just released that Dave Filloni will be attending the event, and we look forward to seeing him and getting to meet him possibly. And obviously he's known for the Emmy Award-winning series Clone Wars and upcoming Rebels series. He's principal director for all that. So Dan, what are your thoughts on this as a big announcement?
It's very cool. It seems like, and you and I were just talking about this a few moments ago, but now we're going to start getting, hopefully, news trickling in for Star Wars Celebration as far as confirmed guests. We already know, as you mentioned, that James Arnold Taylor will be there and as the host. And we've got Dave Filloni. He's probably... Overall, I mean, I know J.J. Abrams, you could make a good argument for him, but Dave Filoni is probably the second most important person in Star Wars over the past 15, 20 years, I would say. So just knowing that he's going to be there is great. I mean, it would be great to shake his hand and get a chance to speak with him, but he's going to have a lot of exciting things to do. We'll probably show previews of what's going to be coming up with Rebels, so just getting that excitement for Celebration ramping up.
Absolutely, and I think it's good that they're announcing all this kind of stuff, and it's good that Dave will be there to be able to just to be able to interact with fans and do panels maybe, and just it's nice to see that they're really starting to get this celebration ramped up as far as guests. I know we look forward to it. I've never been there before. You've been to a couple celebrations.
I went to just one. It was Celebration 3 in Indianapolis. It was awesome. I cannot wait to go there and walk around with you wearing the Coffee with Kenobi banner. It would be great.
Carrying a giant flag, yeah.
Yeah, man. Maybe we'll get camels or say they're Eopies and ride around and say, "Hey, man, check us out." And then we'll make sure that they don't spit on people, of course.
Of course. Another little bit of news out there as far as surrounding around Dave Filloni. It's been kind of rumored that maybe he'd be interested in doing a live-action film. I might, for myself, I think this would be a great addition to his career. He's definitely showing his chops as far as making the Star Wars universe just better than it could ever be as far as the Rebels and Clone Wars. I'm looking forward to this for him to be able to step into some bigger shoes, if you will, if this is a possibility. What are your thoughts, Dan?
Yeah, this is something that I saw on Twitter. He was doing an interview for slashfilm.com. And basically, before we get everybody really excited, he basically just said that he's open to it.
Sure.
And I don't know about you, but the moment I heard that they were making new Star Wars films, you broke that news to me. We've talked about that before. One of the first things I thought was, well, surely, I thought, wouldn't it be great if they could get Steven Spielberg to do one, which doesn't appear that's going to happen. And, of course, Dave Filloni. They asked him if he would be interested in a movie. And they said 10 years down the road, and we'll put a link in our show notes to this article. But he basically says, that's a selfish thing to say, but of course I would. I mean, if we were to get an opportunity like that, I wouldn't turn it down. I would see it as a great honor to do it, and I would apply all of my Jedi knowledge to doing it as best as I can. And then he sort of alludes to in this article that he knows, and of course he knows, what's going on and what they've got planned. And the guy is a walking encyclopedia. He and Pablo Hidalgo and George Lucas, they know their Star Wars. They're the creators of it. And they've just done so many amazing things with this great saga. So there isn't a Star Wars fan who has heard of Dave Filoni that does not think, if this were to happen, and again, we don't usually cover speculation, but it's just something that I think everybody wishes would happen at some point. Now, naturally, he's doing such an amazing job with the animated world that I don't want him to leave that, but man, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I think also we got to apply this to, when they're announcing Episode 7, a lot of the film directors that were out there kind of swirling around as far as competitors for that, and I know a lot of them were approached, and some turned it down, I think for their own reasons, and I think it's open to anybody at this point. I think they're still trying to nail some of those things down. You mentioned Spielberg. I mean, I think it always seems like it's a possibility. Just wait for the official announcement, of course.
Possibility for Spielberg or just anyone?
Oh yeah, just anybody. I think it's a possibility, but I think they're really
because he's pretty much said, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but he pretty much said that's George's world.
Yeah,
and that's George's sandbox, so to speak. And although I don't think, and didn't he direct the big fight sequence between Anakin and Obi-Wan and Revenge of the Sith?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that he did.
I'm sure he's had his hand in a couple of things that we just don't know about. I mean, they're obviously good friends. I'm.
I need to ask Rob this from the Bearded
There you
Trio.
go. Yeah, but definitely putting Dave Filoni, like you said, Dave Filoni and Star Wars just are like peanut butter and jelly.
That's right. And I want to cover real quickly before we move on to our next story. In the announcement that StarWars.com had with Dave Filoni confirmed for Celebration, they have all these different panels. There's a Celebration art show, other deadlines for fan tables and fan programming, all this kind of exciting stuff like that. Interesting. They have a Celebration podcast stage. That's new, Corey. And I think it goes without saying that we will certainly put our hat in the ring, so to speak, and because we want to be a part of that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think if they're going to put something out there for a podcast to be able to be involved in any way, shape, or form as far as Celebration and celebrating fandom of Star Wars, we'd definitely take them up on that if that came available. I think, too, also it's nice to see that they're reaching out to fandom in every way possible as far as, like you said, the fan tables and submitting artwork and fan art and things like that nature. So check out the link in our show notes to all that.
Well, and September 30th of this year is when the podcasting application is due. So that is also my birthday. So what a great present for Lucasfilm to give to us to let us be a part of this podcasting stage. And when I hear the word stage, to me that means a much more grandiose scope. And that, to me, that makes me drool. And I've been fortunate. I love hosting stuff and all that. So to me, the more people are there to see it, the better. How do you feel about that? Are you excited about being in front of 1 million people?
I think it'd be wonderful to be able to just sit in front of a panel and be able to just enjoy in the conversation. I might be a little bit nervous, but I'd definitely love to be involved in some way as far as being on a panel or things of that nature.
Our next news story is something that just happened, as did our previous story about Dave Filoni and Celebration. Variety.com, who we all know and trust, says that according to Bob Iger's most recent conference call, he says there's going to be a far greater, quote, Star Wars presence in his theme parks. Iger said on Tuesday. Currently, of course, we've got Star Tours, and things like that. Little things. We've got Endor Vendor at Hollywood Studios. We've got Star Tours at Disneyland. He didn't really give any details at all, but during the conference call, he said the likelihood of the success is greater for a brand when they build an attraction. As far as when we're going to find out or what it's going to be, he just basically says next year. So, oh dear, right? We got to wait again, but at least they're coming out there saying, hey, this is going to happen. We're looking for a huge presence, and we're going to announce it next year.
Well, I think it's nice that they're talking about it. It's in the works.
Instead of just having a speculation.
Right. Instead of, saying, hey, what's going to happen? But, it seems like next year is going to be a gigantic year for all things pop culture and movies and theme parks. And this is right up there with that. Star Wars it seems like it's everywhere right now. And just to be able to highlight that in a theme park, I think it's like just waiting out there just to be done and done the right way as far as putting in Disney or wherever. But I'm looking forward to it myself. We've talked it numerous times about having different attractions there. I think it just seems like it goes hand in hand together. Our next news story has to do with a little promo released after the Star Wars Phineas and Ferb's TV event that they had on Disney. They premiered a 7-minute clip of Rebels. I wasn't able to watch it until later on today. Dan, you texted me asking if I'd seen the clip. I heard the news about it, but I hadn't seen it until this afternoon during my lunch break. My initial thoughts, I'll just start off. Overall, I thought it was really good. I really liked it. I liked the characters, to see them in action and actually see them kind of leaping into action, meeting each other. It seems like this is a fast-paced episode. I'm assuming it's from the first episode. We're going to see Ezra as where he lives in his life and his interaction. And I thought the interaction was really cool, meeting these characters and things. I feel like it was a little bit chopped. I wonder if that's just they're excluding some parts as far as the story-wise might go, and maybe some of the things the Empire's doing. It seemed like it was very... the Rebels side, very, very heavy on that part as far as introducing us to them.
Well, I think that I have a myriad thoughts on this, Corey. Of course, I do want to say right off the bat that I thought that the music provided by Kevin Kiner I thought was exquisite. In fact, that may be my favorite thing. Besides Ezra's eyes, had this amazing blue to them. The color palette it's gorgeous, and I thought the music was great. You hear these little hints to the Force theme when Luke asks Obi-Wan about the Force on Tatooine. You hear that when Ezra first senses Kanan's presence. I thought that was awesome. I love the TIE fighters and hearing that original sound. It seems like from A New Hope when the TIE fighters are buzzing by. How wild that they're in the atmosphere of Lothal, flying around, right?
I noticed like that first shot is Ezra on the little watchtower there, and the ship overhead is, oh my gosh, is that a homage to episode 4 or what?
Oh, I know. I totally agree. We were very excited that we got invited to go to the premiere of this in San Diego, but we weren't able to attend at this time. But I'm going to guess, based on what we've been hearing from our friends and online, and based on what we saw last night, that this is the beginning of the first episode. Mm-hmm. Don't you think? Just the way they're setting it up.
It seems like a big setup as far as
because they're getting everybody's action. They're already established, and we're going to find out in A New Dawn how Hera and Kanan met. So this is how we're seeing how Ezra joins the crew. I do want to point out something that kind of rubbed me the wrong way about this. I don't know if you notice this, but the level of violence in this is strong. Now, this is war, this is rebellion, and it's going to get bloody. It's going to get messy. I think the thing for me that escalates the cost of this is when the clones died, it was sad because they're clones and we were attached to them, but somehow they were able to segue away from the peril because they were clones, quote-unquote clones. And then when droids get killed, they're droids. They're not real, right? I guess none of these things are real, obviously, but for the purposes of the show. Now, in this one, a stormtrooper gets killed. We know those are human beings. And then they're trying to shoot at this kid. Who's a kid? He's, 14? So that's interesting to me, and that doesn't necessarily turn me off by any stretch of the imagination. But if this is a show that's aimed at Star Wars fans, some of the fans are kids. So do you see where I'm going with this? It's interesting that they would do that. And maybe the most unique thing to me about this idea is Zeb, when Ezra is taking off on the speeder bike with that great sound from Return of the Jedi of the speeder bikes, he says, if he catches that kid, I'm going to end him. Like, he's saying, I'm going to kill a child. And maybe he's just joking and he's rough around the edges. And I know practically nothing about Zeb, but it's just something that sort of jumped off the screen at me. And I thought, oh, okay, that's pretty serious stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. My opinion on this is, it's interesting you brought this up. I'm glad you did. Coming off of season 6, which was awfully violent. I mean, I don't know if that's because it was on Netflix. They thought they could, just a little more extra stuff in there. But I will say it was a little more violent than I thought it would be, and I know they're really trying to depict the Empire as, a bully of a sense. They were picking on the guy on Lothal there, and really just they were ready to take him away as far as doing really nothing.
Yeah,
and that was my first thing was obviously they're gonna beef that up a little, but yeah, taking down the stormtroopers as they did. I mean, we don't.
No, that part was interesting. Like the physical, the fisticuffs, that was fine. But it was a good guy threatening that he was going to end a child.
Right,
that threw me.
Right. No, I remember hearing that, and I was thinking. Now it seems to be they're trying to introduce his demeanor, and
yes,
I don't think he would necessarily
do that.
Yeah. I think they're saying like, oh, he's a rough and tough guy. But when his dad comes down to it, he's full of heart or something like that. It's
right. And we heard on Full of Sith when they interviewed the cast, Steve Blumner, but that basically, he's a tough character, but he and Ezra have this unshakable bond. And obviously, this is the very, very beginning when they first meet, and we don't know what Zeb has been through or what his experiences are, and he maybe just someone who gets frustrated and angry, and he was just expressing himself, and I get that. I'm not judging or passing, saying that it's going to be anything other than what it is, an exciting, powerful show with some undertones of rebellion. And rebellions, as we said, are bloody. They are messy. But it's just something that caught my eye. I'd be curious to see what other people thought of that, too. Check
out our Facebook page and see. Maybe we'll start a thread on there and get people's opinions as far as the clip that was showing. Other thoughts that I had, did you feel like the dialogue was a little lacking?
Can you think of a specific example?
I thought Kanan was a little bit just short as far as his words. I mean, he didn't talk a whole lot as far as, I know it seemed like it was a secret mission. I wonder if they were just lying low.
Yes, and whatever is in that box. Yeah. I see what you're saying. It just kind of...
It seemed like a little...
Which reminds me of A New Hope.
I guess, but it seems like they're missing something.
Well, it's true, and again, we're just getting a very, very. I mean, you're a great writer. You know that at the beginning, it's sort of hard to kind of gauge what's going to happen because they're trying to build these characters. I'm intrigued. I was hoping to see Hera in this clip, which we don't. But Sabine is someone that I find myself being drawn to. She's got some cool spunk. We heard again on those interviews on Full of Sith that she and Ezra, she has a harder time accepting Ezra right off the bat.
That's interesting.
Yes, but right there, it seems like she basically cuts him loose and says, all right, kid, you got some spunk.
She gave him a chance to get away.
And it's almost like people like seem to really try to find, okay, who's Han Solo in this story? But apparently that is probably a testament to the charisma of Harrison Ford on screen anyway. But if anyone appeared to be quote unquote like Han Solo, which I'm not necessarily a big fan of people trying to do, but if anyone is like Han Solo, it would seem to be Sabine, at least to me, and in this 7-minute clip anyway.
Sure. I will say that you said we didn't see Hera, which was unfortunate.
You hear her voice, yeah.
You hear her voice, but here's what I'm thinking happens. Mm-hmm. So the clip ends with a TIE fighter coming right in for Ezra, right?
Oh, I like where you're going with this.
And here comes the ghost ship, fly by, boom, gone, and they pick him up or whatever. That's my speculation. I have not seen the first episode. Overall, I'm looking forward to it. I think it was a great 7-minute clip. It gets me excited. We talked to Adam Bray about his Star Wars Rebels book and the visual guide, and gives us breakdowns for each character, and just to see them in action, on the screen there was just exciting enough to get
Stunning.
me just going on this. I'm like eager to get into this series, and I can't wait.
Well, and I brought it up at the beginning when we talked about this, but did you notice how awesome the music was?
Yes, I was going to mention that. You beat me to it. The music, yes, it was very, very John Williams-esque, and plays off these some great themes. Like you said, Ezra was looking over the stores there, the rooftops, and he notices Kanan, and the theme was a definite Skywalker's theme. So it was excellent. I loved the play, and even like his little like noticing, quote unquote, noticing through the Force was really nice.
And did you see on Twitter, we got a pretty fun thread going through our Coffee with Kenobi Twitter feed, the similarities to Aladdin.
Yes. Yeah, that was cool.
Stealing and listening.
I kind of thought that too. That was interesting.
it's there, and he kind of has the look of Aladdin, really. I heard Dave Filloni saying that he was inspired by Tangled.
Oh, yeah.
The animation style of Tangled, which you can kind of see that there too. I'm not the artist that you are. I mean, heck, I can't even draw a straight line with a ruler. But it's cool. I mean, I'm very, very excited about it. I wanted more. That's probably the best thing I can say about when it was over. I thought, all right, I need more. And I believe there's going to be another 8 or 7 minute one next week too on the Disney Channel. That's what Aaron Harris had mentioned something about that. He saw a commercial for that. So hopefully that's true. And who knows, by the time they show all these little vignettes, maybe we'll have already seen the first episode before it even aired.
We'll have to wait and see.
And now, let's join Rob Wainford as he pours your espresso shot with the bearded trio.
And now, your espresso shot with the bearded trio.
Cory Dee Williams, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
Hi everyone, it's Rob Wainford here, bringing you a special espresso shot with the bearded trio. Now, I was lucky enough to attend London Film and Comic Con at a scorching Earl's Court a few weeks back, where I met some fantastic guests such as Billy Dee Williams, Carrie Fisher and a dog, and John Hurt, to name a few. Now, while I was there, I was fortunate enough to catch up with Cory Dee Williams, who played Klaatu in Return of the Jedi. Now, I spent a few minutes asking him a few questions, and my first question was, what scene did he do stand-in work for his father, Billy Dee? And if there was anything funny he remembers from the set.
Well, I was in the Sarlacc pit scene that was filmed in Yuma, Arizona, and I was hired and went there to work as a stand-in for him. And then I actually ended up doing some doubling work for him in the scene where he's hanging over the side of gets blown over the side of the skiff. It was like 110 degrees in the shade there, and so they actually, we had to do a lot of different things to try and stay cool. Oh, one funny fact about George was, now that you mentioned a funny fact, he wore a flannel shirt in the desert, and he wore that shirt, the same shirt, every day throughout the whole shoot. I think it was like a superstitious thing. I don't know, but I remember him always being in that shirt. Maybe he had more than one of them. I don't know.
But in 110 degrees, I would say he's got more than one.
Yeah,
I hope.
But yeah, I think I remember him actually having a flannel shirt on. And the funny thing is, when you're out there in the desert, you have to cover your skin up. You can't expose yourself to the sun, like you would think. You need to kind of cover yourself up a little bit. Yeah.
Well, next I couldn't resist asking Cory Dee whether he owned his own vintage Klaatu Kenner Star Wars figure. Here's what he had to say.
Yeah, I do. They get actually Derek, who manages us. He gave me one when I found out there was an action figure. I didn't even know until about 3 years ago that it even existed.
Really?
Yeah, and not only that, I didn't even know that Klaatu had a name. But when they asked me to do the stunt work as the creature, they just put that mask on my head, and I just remember I couldn't see, I couldn't breathe, and they wanted me to fight with it on. And it wasn't easy.
It must have been so surreal. What am I doing?
Yeah, it was pretty surreal. I mean, and I didn't go there to do that. It just kind of happened. It was fortuitous that they just came to me and said, "Hey, we need you to do this," you know. And it was a spontaneous thing, and I just said, "Okay, let's go."
I bet.
Yeah. So I mean, and the whole trip was kind of spontaneous. It was when I began standing in for my father, and I ended up doing it on a lot of other films as well.
Right.
Yeah, and TV shows.
Wow. What TV shows?
Well, there were pilots for TV shows that he did. One was called Double Dare. One was Shooting Stars. I stood in for him in number one with a bullet, and did some stunts for him and different things.
One of my favourite movies is the classic 1951 sci-fi movie, The Day the Earth Stood Still. Now, Klaatu, who Cory plays in Return of the Jedi, is named after a quote from that movie, which is Klaatu Barada Nikto. In fact, all three words of that famous quote ended up being characters in Return of the Jedi. I asked Cory if he had seen the movie, but first, if he likes sci-fi in general.
On yourself.
Yeah, I love sci-fi. I love sci-fi, and I especially love superhero movies, but
which is your favorite?
Batman. The Dark Knight is one of my favorites. But yeah, I mean, I've seen the old classic. I haven't seen it in a long time, so I don't remember a lot of details about it.
Classic movie. You should watch it.
Yeah, it's very campy, and you know, and just really cool. And then I worked in another movie that was called Buckaroo Banzai, and I was Electroid in that movie.
Really?
Yeah. They made a plaster cast of my head, and then built these rubber prosthesis. And I had to go through like 5 or 6 hours of makeup at the crack of dawn because it was a speaking role. But Klaatu, it was just a head that velcroed up the back. And
now, the full name of that movie Cory mentioned is called The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension. Now, you need to check it out, or at least watch the trailer on YouTube. It's a very strange movie, but it does star RoboCop's Peter Weller, John Lithgow, and a very young Jeff Goldblum. Oh, and Christopher Lloyd appears in the movie too. So next I asked Cory if Richard Marquand was doing most of the directing on Return of the Jedi, or if George Lucas was calling the shots. Here's what he had to say.
Well, yeah, George was there. I think it was a combination of the two of them. George was definitely a part of it, but I think he was probably so exhausted by. I think he learned his lesson trying to do too much on the very first Star Wars film that he probably needed to kind of delegate some of the other responsibilities to other people at that point. But he was surely actively involved. He was there on the set when I was there. So.
Well, moving away from movies for just a moment, Cory is now a fitness and lifestyle coach. And having spent the weekend myself living on burgers and traditional English breakfasts, I was feeling particularly unhealthy. I couldn't go without asking him some tips on how to stay healthy, so I asked him what the one bit of advice he would give to someone to keep fit and healthy. Here's what he had to say.
Well, I would say if you don't have time to exercise, then exercise and make time for everything else. It's important to do it for your health, and there are so many benefits, and there are so many ways to do it, so many ways to go about it, and everyone can find something that suits them. But I always tell people that what they need to do is start off with 10 minutes a day of something, anything, and get in the habit of doing it. And then once you're in the habit of doing it, then you can increase the amount of time you spend. So baby steps.
That's good advice. I might take you up on that one.
But there we go. Cory Dee there giving some tips on how to keep fit. Well, back to movies now, and I suspect we all know the answer to this one, but I asked him what his favourite Star Wars movie is. Here's what he had to say. Oh, and listen out for Cory Dee's impression of Lando Calrissian.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer, right? Return of the Jedi is probably my favorite Star Wars movie by far, I think. Not just because I was in it, but I just really liked the way that they wound everything up in that movie, in the first 3 movies. And to me, it's the best of the three. But I also like Empire because there was some scenes that my father had with Darth Vader in there where he kind of challenged him, and nobody ever got away with that. We used to joke about it and laugh and say, you're the only guy who ever talked loud or raised his voice to Darth Vader and made it to the next scene, much less to the next movie. He was like, Lord Vader, that wasn't a condition of our agreement. No, it was giving Han to that bounty hunter.
Your father is so cool.
He treated unfairly.
Cory Dee doing Lando. And he's got the laugh too. Now, my final question to Cory Dee, I couldn't go without asking him if he'd like to be in Star Wars 7 or a future Star Wars movie. Here's his answer.
Well, who would say no to that opportunity? I mean, hello out there, anybody that wants me to put on another mask or do another anything, I'm available.
We'll make sure we get the message out there for you.
Right.
Really, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Cory Dee Williams. Thank you for taking the time. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're quite welcome. I really enjoyed my time here in London, my first time here. Took the tube and saw some sights and actually saw the city for a change. Usually you don't. So thank you so much.
Cory wants in. I hope you're listening, JJ. What a great guy Cory Dee Williams is, and I want to thank him again for taking the time during a really busy London Film and Comic-Con to answer a few questions. He really does follow his father for the cool factor. Well, that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed the interview. Don't forget to follow the Bearded Trio on Twitter and Facebook, and you can check out the main site too. If you want to contact me by email, then rob@thebeardedtrio.com is where I'm at. And that's it from me. Thanks again for listening, and I'll hand you back to Coffee with Kenobi. Goodbye.
Han Solo, Rebel Soldier, Lando Calrissian, and Bespin Guard, each sold separately. From Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back collection, new from Kenner.
Looking? Found someone you have, I would say, Your lightsabers will make a fine addition to my collection.
For our first news item for Collector's News, we're big fans of the Star Wars novels, obviously anticipating the releases coming out this year and next year with the new novels, especially Star Wars A New Dawn by John Jackson Miller. We do follow the Del Rey books on Facebook, and they put out a lot of great information and things like that, the nature of upcoming events. And they kind of posted something that has to do with the Legends, the EU line, and the characters there. Dan, you want to explain a little more of that?
Yeah, I'm just going to read it real quick because it's they're them sort of addressing what I'm assuming is going to be a very popular question that they have received, and it says, we wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that we read the comments and posts addressed to us throughout the weekend, and we appreciate the passion you all have for the Star Wars Expanded Universe. The Del Rey team has worked for many years on these books, and we all share your love of the Legends EU characters and stories. As we have stated, there are currently no plans for new books under the Legends banner. What we can assure you of, as big fans and readers ourselves, we're extremely excited about the direction Star Wars storytelling is taking, and we're thrilled to be a part of it. There's a deeper level of collaboration with Lucasfilm and his partners that we're confident will provide you, the readers, with amazing Star Wars stories in books, comics, television, video games, and movies. Not only does this mean more Star Wars stories, but it also means we can officially say for the first time that the books are part of the canon. Again, we all have tremendous love and admiration for the EU/Legends tales, and they will continue to inspire and influence stories that will be told for generations to come. That is evident in John Jackson Miller's new novel, Star Wars A New Dawn. So basically, this is just them coming out there and saying, we hear you, we appreciate your sentiment and your passion, and we feel the same way. It's just for right now, we're going to focus on the canon, and those are the things we'll continue to inspire that, which basically Dave and everyone else has been saying for a while now, and Steve Sansweet said on our show. And, I'm glad that they addressed it. So we've got a lot going on, as always, when it comes to Star Wars these days. Tell me your thoughts on all this Star Wars goodness, my friend.
Yeah, I'm glad they brought this out too, because I feel like they're gonna be fighting this maybe more than once throughout the the career here as far as Del Rey team and producing Lucasfilm stuff, and I feel like they're kind of a third party, and they're just trying to contribute good stories and putting stuff out there and just trying to obviously do good by Star Wars. And we got nothing but good stuff from them over the years, I would say. I mean, all the Legends line are good books, good novels, and certainly you can go back and pick them up whenever you'd like and read those and enjoy them as tales. We've said it before, same thing with the Dark Horse comics. I know that Marvel's taken that over. It seems like it's cementing a new
dawn.
Yeah, a new dawn. Exactly. It's really what it is. I mean, we've talked about this before where comic books are constantly having different timelines. There's Earth 2 and DC. There's all kinds of different timelines in Marvel series and different characters that interact with each other, and they always cross paths and things like that. What I'm excited about, I think, is to see the tricklings of the Legends banner in these new books. They've got to pull stuff from it. I mean,
yeah,
I feel like it's going to always be there. It's a giant mine shaft of knowledge and exciting things, and they're not they're putting it aside or discounting it by any means. I think It seems like it's a lot of folks even commented underneath this message, kind of putting it down as far as the EU, and when they kind of cut it loose and they let it go. And I don't think that's true at all. I think they had to make a decision as far as a company, and as far as a story group goes. I think it was a difficult decision for them to make. But I also think that they're doing the right thing to be able to start fresh.
It just makes sense because and maybe this is a lot easier for me to grasp onto and own this principle, because I've always understood that they're not canon. It's just like another way to look at it. I like how our last listener from the last show, you talked to us about, and I can't think of his name off the top of my head, so I apologize, my friend. But he talked about it so much like King Arthur. And it very much is. King Arthur has all these legends, and the word legend is an incredibly complimentary adjective to describe what these stories are. And like you said, they're going to trickle through everywhere. And, Star Wars Bookworms and the Star Wars Report and Star Wars Stacks and all these other great Star Wars podcasts and Club Jade and all these people out there, they're going to catch all these things probably a lot more quickly and astutely than I am, because I'm not as familiar with every single EU book that was ever published, although I've certainly read a lot more, especially over the past few years. But it's going to be there. It's going to be a part of it. And knowing that they're not tied down to 30-plus years of expanded universe stories and can kind of go forward and take it in new, exciting directions, that is something to be excited about. Our next Collector's News segment isn't really collector news related, but it just fits here better. We wanted to talk really, really briefly about Guardians of the Galaxy. And this is, of course, an insanely popular film that just came out last weekend. Cory and I, believe it or not, even though we live 5 minutes away from each other, we don't get to hang out as much as we would like because we're busy young men with families and such. But we did get a chance to sneak out and go see the film together. Had a really interesting discussion about it, and we wanted to carry that discussion over to the air. And I'll just go ahead and start by saying I think it's pretty clear to anyone who's ever heard me talk about movies before that I'm kind of a slice and dice sort of guy. I'm pretty strict and critical of things, and I certainly have a way of looking at it. I was disappointed by a lot of films this summer. I don't know if you could say I was disappointed by Transformers because I expected it to stink, and it did. But I loved this movie. I thought it was tremendous. I thought it was everything I want from a summer movie, but more, because I really thought there was real heart. I really thought each character had an interesting arc. They came to some sort of resolution. They weren't fixed. They're still psychologically flawed, but the family dynamic was great. You can't ignore the humor and the witty dialogue, the delivery, the charisma of the cast. I thought it was just tremendous. What about you?
Yeah, I found myself just pleasantly surprised as far as just enjoying the film and not having going in, not having to know too much. And like you said, the cast was incredible. I think every cast member did a great job. I enjoyed the interactions between the characters. It was just a fun popcorn comic book movie, and even that, I mean, to me, it wasn't necessarily a comic book movie. It was just an adventure, sci-fi, blast off type movie, just to enjoy and and have a good time. And like you said, you're very analytical about things, and I think that's what you bring to the show, obviously, and makes it so good, is the fact that you sit down and chop things up and dissect it, and I think that's wonderful. And I wouldn't say I'm the total complete opposite, but I believe I do sit back a little bit and breathe things in, and then take time afterwards to dissect it myself. But like you said, it has heart, it has laughs, it has explosions, it has a little bit for almost everybody.
Yeah, and like in the end, that there's just, Groot is just, because he's become an instant sci-fi cult hero. People love Groot, and I understand why. He's just, in fact, when I saw the scene at the end, which I won't spoil for people, I thought, oh man, this is gonna be something. This is like an iconic moment in sci-fi film history. This is pretty good stuff. I think again, I was the most impressed with the fact that this felt original to me. Marvel took to me a bigger risk with this than anything, because none of these characters are really known at all. And I've been collecting comics most of my life, and I'm even vaguely familiar with some of these characters. And I understand now that one of the reasons they took a big chance is because a lot of the other heroes are already owned up by other companies. So Marvel didn't really have that many more characters they could explore. So this just seemed like the way to go, and it was great. I'm just so happy with how the fact is that even though you were mentioning both on Facebook and with me when we were talking about this the other night, how did it impact you knowing that there was going to be a sequel before you even saw this movie?
Yeah, I heard the announcement just before we kind of made plans to go see it that night, that they were making a sequel, and I thought, well, that's really cool, but I haven't even seen the first movie yet, and I think it's kind of a crazy move, and it seems like that's kind of the norm now. It seems like let's just announce tons of movies in our slate for the next 15 years, and it ruins things for me as a fan. I think it doesn't give enough peril to the characters in the film themselves. Obviously they're not going to kill off the heroes, in any circumstance, but you still want to be able to get excited and feel tension and excitement, and be able to live through those moments with those characters and kind of be on the edge of your seat and curious to know what's going to happen next. And then not to spoil anything for anybody themselves. It's out there, it's news, but I'm excited for a second movie, but I'm also not excited because I think this is such a nice hit from Marvel. Like you said, you even said this, I think, even before the first trailer came out. This is a risk for Marvel, and they did a great job with it. They did a good job with the characters and just making that transition. And I think to make this just a single shot and be able to put it out there and just to be able to enjoy it is good enough for me. And let's use Marvel dollars from this film and focus on somebody else or a new different group. Like you said, they took a big risk with this. Why not shoot for the stars and try something else like a Nova movie or something like that? I don't know. It seems like ramping up the sequel.
Don't you want more Chris Pratt though?
Yeah, Chris Pratt was pretty awesome.
He was. He had that charisma, that swagger. And, yeah. And let's just bring this up now.
Sure.
There are a lot of comparisons of this to Star Wars. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, a good friend of mine had seen it before I did, and he commented. I usually ask him for like a 2 or 3 words, review, not to ruin it for myself. But he said it's a rock and roll Star Wars.
Oh,
and I was like, I like that. I like that a lot. That's really cool. And a lot of folks online have been comparing it to Star Wars a lot, and some folks had mentioned that it's 2014's Star Wars for this generation. And I obviously take away a lot of Star Wars little memorandums or hints or just throwbacks to the franchise, and obviously a lot of films do that in general. I saw a commercial the other day that did a Star Wars reference. It's in pop culture, so it's out there.
It's getting to be like Shakespeare.
That's very true.
It's everywhere. It's ubiquitous, you might even say.
So would you agree to that fact that it's this generation's Star Wars, or what?
No,
I don't think so. It's
this generation Star Wars is Star Wars.
It is Star Wars, exactly. Yeah. It's not dead by any means.
No,
and obviously we're gonna see, with the Star Trek series, it's going to be new. It's going to feel fresh. It's going to be new actors. It's going to look crisp on the screen because of the digital, design, and that's the way it's going to be because of the technology of the times. Now, because Star Wars has such prevalence, it seems like we pick apart every little, TV show or movie that comes out and try to relate to that, or that guy's like Han Solo, or that guy's the Luke Skywalker,
And I don't understand. I mean, I understand because people love Han Solo, and we just want to keep him alive and vibrant in the culture. Well, he is,
Sure.
These characters are that they're just like a part of everyday life for the media, for culture, and for a lot of fans. And I think that's great. Personally, for me, when I was watching this, if any movie came to my mind, it was Raiders of the Lost Ark at the very, very beginning. And that was probably for about 20 seconds.
Yeah.
And then it went away. You know what I mean? And then I just embraced this story, this universe, this world that was being created and by James Gunn. And I loved it. I thought it was so much fun. But I don't, and we talked about this with the discussion of Rebels earlier on the show. But to me, there's a ragtag group of heroes that become a family, and there's someone who's a little bit cynical, and there's a tall guy that's unique. He's not hairy, but he's made of tree bark. There's a shorter hairy character who's a beloved character already. I love Rocket. He's just a lot of fun. Bradley Cooper, it was almost unrecognizable as Bradley Cooper. Just shows the range of his acting. He's got some chops, man.
Does.
So other than that, I just don't gravitate towards that idea of comparing it to Star Wars because it's its own thing. I mean, I understand as well as anyone the idea of where stories come from and how they are related to stories from the past. I mean, things have come from the Beowulf, they've come from the Odyssey, they've come from King Arthur. Every story influences the next story to a certain degree, and that's as it should be. That's just called storytelling and mythology.
Right.
And I love that. If anything, there's probably more similarities between this and Rebels, just based on what I've seen, or probably Firefly.
Yeah, I was going to mention Firefly too.
And are you a big Firefly person?
I am. I'm not necessarily a full brown coat, if you want to call it that.
Oh, nice.
But I do enjoy Firefly. It was a lot of fun, and that's again why that was so beloved by fans, because it was harkening back to Star Wars, and that was.
And Nathan Fillion was supposedly Han Solo, right?
Right. I mean, but that's. See, we can discuss that later. But I'm just saying, like you said, a lot of people riffed from Star Wars because that's what it was, and
it's an homage.
It is an homage, and Star Wars was an homage to Joseph Campbell's work. So
and Flash Gordon,
right? Flash Gordon, exactly. And it just seems like it's just generational. So it's going to be generational, and Star Wars has lasted and been beloved for so long. So we'll just probably take this on forever. So it's just I'm excited for it, and I love Guardians of the Galaxy. It was a lot of fun. So
I'm excited for the sequel.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, and this sounds really weird, especially for me because I'm usually not like this, but when there's about 20 minutes left in the film, I thought, I can't wait for the sequel. Even though I'm not even done with this movie, I can't wait for the sequel because the hype is so fun.
Well, he definitely said some things.
It does, and that is a testament. This movie is a prime example of what good marketing can do, because the trailers were so successful, and I was pretty skeptical of the first trailer, but it turned out to be a colossal success, and it's all due to how they made this happen. They built this enthusiasm and excitement for something that had no real built-in fan base.
Right.
Now take this level of marketing and charisma and this good cast and put that in episode 7, and oh my goodness, I can't even imagine. Yeah. I can't even imagine what we have in store.
Well, even put it into Rebels. I mean,
yeah,
even that's ramping up now, and we we know somewhat of the characters what we've seen so far, but yeah, that's right up there with Rebels and Guardians of the Galaxy. It's just that unknown factor is really nice to have.
Hi, this is Adam Bray, author of Star Wars Rebels, The Visual Guide, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z and Cory Clubb. This is the podcast you're looking for.
Luke, you're going to find that many of the truths we cling to depend greatly on our own point of view.
I must be allowed to speak.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
Our topic for show number 23 is Rebels. What are you looking forward to with this promising new series? What have you thought about the trailers and official news so far? Which characters resonate with you at this point and why? What themes are you starting to notice based on what we have seen? Joining us on this topic is friend of the show and author of Star Wars Rebels, The Visual Guide, Adam Bray. Adam's excellent book is full of stunning visuals and promising information about the upcoming series. He is a composer, photographer, illustrator, and author of many guidebooks, and has written for CNN, the BBC, and National Geographic. His enthusiasm and knowledge of Star Wars is inspiring, and we are happy to have him join us for a cup of coffee. Welcome, Adam.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's a real honor to be on with you guys.
Oh, absolutely. Well, the honor is ours. We were just so thrilled to receive a copy of your book, Rebels, a Visual Guide, and we were curious and wanted to know if you could talk to us about your experiences as a writer and how did that lead to Star Wars?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Well, I started out, as you alluded to, as a travel writer. I was writing guidebooks in Asia and doing travel articles for CNN and CNN Travel and some other media outlets. And one of my earliest book publishers was, was DK. And I'm a lifelong Star Wars fan. So actually, when I started with DK in their travel section, I was very aware that they did, the really great Star Wars guides. But obviously, travel and Star Wars are two very different niches. So I had to stick with travel because that was what I was doing at the time. But, I kind of put that in my back pocket as an idea, maybe in the future, I could kind of switch over and work in the Star Wars section. But so I worked on their travel guides for several years. And eventually I came back to the U.S. and jumped right back into my Star Wars fandom. And I went to Celebration 6 and got refamiliarized with all the great Star Wars blogs and, the authors and what's new and going on in the Star Wars universe. And I got talking with another Star Wars author and put me in touch with the right people in the DK Star Wars. And so I moved on over to them. And my first Star Wars book was What Makes a Monster, which is a kid's book that came out, I think, in March. And the DK Lucasfilm liked that. And so they asked me to work on the Rebels visual guide. So that's my most recent book for DK. And really, it was a lot of fun. It's the most enjoyable book I've written and worked on for sure. So I'm just thrilled and excited about the book and excited about the Rebels TV series for sure.
Oh yes, absolutely. And real quick segue for you. You mentioned all your experiences as a travel writer. Are you a Mark Twain fan, considering all the travel writing he did?
I am, but I haven't read since I was a kid, but I know, back in school, I really loved the Mark Twain stories, Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn and all of that. So yeah, it was definitely inspiring as a kid.
Oh, cool. The only reason I'm bringing it up is in my role as an educator, we talk about Mark Twain, and his very first book, The Innocents Abroad, was a book about him going over to Europe, and it was really, really funny. I bet you'd love it, and I'm sure the listeners are like, "That's nice, Dan. Can you get back to Star Wars?"
No, yeah, this day and age, a lot of the classical authors really get they kind of get ignored and overlooked, and I think they're really important. I really enjoy the historic adventures and old memoirs of explorers back 100 years ago, and I think that's part of why I really like Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones has been a real big influence on me to get me exploring and traveling around the world. So yeah, I like those old travel tales.
Well, Indiana Jones is certainly the world traveler, as are you. And just from your experience as a world traveler and explorer, how have those helped shape the Star Wars Rebels visual guide?
Yeah, the Rebels visual guide is essentially a guidebook. It's it's introducing you kind of like a traveler in a completely new and unfamiliar area of the Star Wars universe. And the book, the Rebels Visual Guide, it's very location and experience oriented. In addition to these new characters and ships, so it's it kind of dissects Star Wars Rebels very much the way a travel guide does, very much the way DK's guides do in particular. And both books required, both travel guides and the Rebels Visual Guide required a lot of research and observation and just really going through the reference material over and over again that I was given for Star Wars Rebels. Actually, I definitely spent far more time studying the materials that I was given and doing background research by looking at other Star Wars books from the past, other DK books, at John Rinsler's Making of Star Wars, and other, comics and novels, and rewatching bits of the movies and clips and things to kind of help me fill in some of the little gaps and the background information. So there's actually more research involved in doing a guide like the Rebels Guide than the actual writing. More time in the research, and that's very much the way a travel guide is most of it is about the research.
It sounds really engaging, like a heck of a lot of fun, especially when you're spending time with something you love. And speaking of that, we as fans certainly would love to know about your creative process working with Dave Filloni and the Lucasfilm Story Group. A very exciting, bold new venture that Star Wars has undertaken over the past few months. So we've got this series and characters that are virtually unknown to Star Wars fans. So how did your research and collaboration with Dave and the Lucasfilm Story Group help bring this book to fruition? Sure.
It's definitely, it was a very informal process. Basically, what Lucasfilm sent to the publishers and I, as a whole, of course, that's going to determine the scope of the book and what the book's going to cover. We're not going to go, beyond what Lucasfilm sends us. So to start out, Lucasfilm didn't place any particular demands on me. They just, they sent me all the reference materials and said, this is what we've got so far, and this is what you've got to work with, and kind of have fun. But we start with an outline of the book, some ideas that we want to cover, and the publisher and Lucasfilm work out kind of the skeleton of the book, they, of course, from start through as I'm working on the book, they send me concept art and scripts and outlines. They send me images from the show, and there's there's emails back and forth between myself and Leland Chee and the team at Lucasfilm whenever I've got questions.
Wow!
And I just start to put things together, and it was really exciting to receive this stuff. I started working on the book, started receiving materials back in January. So to see all this stuff well ahead of anybody else, and to read what they've got for the stories, is really exciting because, as you said, it's a completely new part of the Star Wars universe. And it's I could hear the John Williams scores in my head while I'm reading, and it definitely Rebels brings me back to the time of, when I was a little kid back in the 80s watching Star Wars. And I'm sure you guys have seen the new clips that Lucasfilm has put out from Rebels this week and last week. So maybe you guys feel the same way.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's really amazing. And I think Simon, Greg, and Dave have all done a fantastic job. The writers on Rebels are just really amazing. The stories are they're great. They're creative. They're really evocative of Star Wars. They're funny, very funny. They had me laughing out loud. But yeah, as I get all these things, I really have to, because everything is in story form, and I get art, but to write a book, you've really got to take that all in as a whole and then deconstruct it, and figure out, how to define each of these characters. Lucasfilm and Dave Filloni and the gang have created the characters in the story, but it's my job to summarize them and introduce them. So that takes some time to study what they've given me. But they gave me a lot of freedom, and there are things that they leave me, small things, background details, particularly like diagramming, the ships and the weapons, and coming up with names for parts and things. They leave some of that to me to write, and but when I put it all together, then of course it goes back. Eventually, it goes back to Lucasfilm, and there's some back and forth between Lucasfilm and the publisher, and they come to the final version, and everything gets approved by Lucasfilm before it goes to the printer. But it's all a very, very satisfying experience for me. I'm thrilled with the process and how things turned out.
Well, how incredible that you get to contribute to canon. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, well, of course, most of the credit, belongs to Dave Filloni and the team at Lucasfilm. But yeah, the little things that they let me contribute to, I'm amazed. I still can't believe that I've been given the honor to work on this book that essentially introduces the TV series. It's an incredible honor, and just working with the material. I was such a fan of the whole Dave Filloni and Lucasfilm's the team, a fan of their work on the Clone Wars and everything else, and just to be able to work on this book for the new series. I'm honored. It's a thrill. I still don't believe that it's happened. I can't believe it when I look at the book, and it's just amazing.
Certainly. DK was kind enough to send us along some copies, and I know that I've enjoyed it, and Dan as well, and especially my kids have enjoyed it as well. They basically yanked it out of my hand before I got past page 2, and I really enjoyed it so far. And just look at just the little details and things are just really excellent. My oldest son likes nonfiction books a lot, so this was kind of right up his alley as far as getting into the details and things like that. But I'm curious to know what unique challenges did you come up against exploring this new area of Star Wars?
Well, this was only my second book for DK Star Wars, about Star Wars. So it's still working on the Rebels visual guide. It's still very much a learning process for me. Still learning, what the boundaries are, and what the resources that are available to me, and what I can ask and how much I can impose on people, and because I'm a fan too. I really look up to these guys at Lucasfilm, for the really amazing creative people that they are. And so starting out, I didn't know how much I should bug them. But so, yeah, learning the ropes and everything was new to me. And as I went, the most challenging thing was because beginning in January, Lucasfilm has had to kind of hit the ground with their feet running with all of this, and so things were still very much in production while I was starting to write the book, and they were still, working on episodes, still working on animation. They're still actively involved in producing the first season. So, they didn't have much finished material for me to look at or get references from. So at times I had to work or kind of imagine and look a little further ahead than where they actually were based on the information they'd given me. That helped place some of the boundaries on what we would cover in the book, but it also left me, with little holes in background details, mostly things that that you're not going to see on camera anyway. But like the diagrams and the parts for the ships, and talking about some of the weapons and hardware and things, and some the background details basically. And so I had to fill in some of those things. It's because it's a completely new corner of the galaxy that we've never seen before. There wasn't a lot of background material that's directly applicable. There really wasn't any. In the near future, we're going to have books like Ryder Wyndham's Ezra's Gamble. If you've seen the cover of that, it's got Ezra and the main character and the bounty hunter Bosk. John Jackson Miller's new book, A New Dawn, will come out, I think, in September. And Jason Fry has another book focusing on a character that's in the Rebels Guide, but I don't think Lucasfilm has officially announced yet. But anyway, these books that are coming out soon I'm under the impression they're all talking about backstories for the series. But when I'm starting, there were no backstories to draw from, for my understanding. So I had to go back and do a lot of research, looking at things like DK's complete vehicles and complete locations and their previous visual guides. John Rensler's Making of Star Wars. I looked at old Dark Horse comic books. From what I know of novels and other Star Wars media to get references, because I wanted where I had to fill in details that hadn't been given to me by Lucasfilm. I wanted to draw on things that already existed in the what was then known as the EU, to make them believable, to make them familiar to Star Wars fans, to make them realistic. It was challenging to decide, how and where to pull things in. It was a very rewarding experience, and it was a blast.
Oh, and you can tell it just by looking through this gorgeous book. There are just so many fun, engaging things. I loved, like Cory said, when you get it, you just can't put it down. And fortunately, my kids are younger, like really young, so they didn't grab it from me, which is good, because I probably would have had to fight them off for it, like Cory with his kids. But you introduced some interesting things, adding to the Star Wars mythology. But what are some of the prominent themes that Rebels will explore that you feel will add to the mythology of Star Wars?
Well, I've got to tread lightly here, because this is kind of the realm of Dave and Simon and Greg. But I think Dave has already talked about the idea in Rebels that and Star Wars in general, but I think in Rebels that family is more than blood. That these Rebels, they're very diverse. You've got men and women and a variety of aliens. Twi'leks and Lasats, and you've got this brand new droid that I love to death, Chopper. and they're all very different. They're all very diverse, and yet they're forming this unit where they've got to learn to depend and rely on each other. So I think that's an important theme that Dave has already talked about. Another is that, and again, this is something you find in Star Wars already. That really Star Wars is for everybody. It doesn't exclude. It's for all ages. Men and women, whatever your background, which is a wonderful thing. But also the idea that absolutely anything can happen in Rebels. These are brand new characters and a brand new place in the universe on the planet Lothal. It's not like the Clone Wars where we knew where a lot of the characters started in Episode 2 and we knew where they were ending up, in Episode 3. We knew that Anakin was, eventually becomes Darth Vader and, what happens to Obi-Wan and Padme. But here with this new Rebels team, we have no idea, what will actually happen to the individual characters or anybody else that gets introduced in this series. We may have assumptions, presumptions, and guesses based on, how things go in A New Hope. But since these characters don't exist in episodes 4, 5, and 6, anything can happen. So that's pretty exciting. That situation hasn't existed in Star Wars since the original first 3 movies. So this takes us, back kind of to the scenario where Star Wars began, and that's really exciting because the prequels didn't do that, the Clone Wars didn't do that, but Rebels does.
Exactly, and I think that's the best thing about something we love is the mystery that it brings, especially with this Rebels series. I'm looking forward to it. Dan's looking forward to it. You're obviously looking forward to it in a big way. But you said before, you're a lifelong Star Wars fan, and we love having just fans on just to talk shop here. And so what, in your opinion, would be the quintessential methodology for today's audience, and how will Rebels help enhance the saga?
Well, I think start out because Ezra and Sabine are so young. They're early teens. So the two of the main characters in this that young kids can really relate to, and that's something that some of us older fans, who grew up with the original trilogy, we forget that George Lucas created Star Wars for kids, because we were kids when we first saw it. So that's another way that Rebels is going to connect with the next generation and keep things fresh and alive, because kids today are going to relate to them, and believe me, us adults are gonna love it just as much. But I think one of the things that really helped connect it with today's audience is the continuing idea in Rebels and in Star Wars in general that anybody can contribute. That Ewoks, played a pivotal role in Return of the Jedi, and Gungans in The Phantom Menace, and I'm sure we will continue to see throughout Star Wars, unlikely characters that are underestimated and looked down upon that end up playing the pivotal role. Other things that make it important are the themes of loyalty and relationships, the importance of family, which we see all through 6 films. I think one of the things that I really appreciate about Star Wars is that it's something the whole family can enjoy. Whether you're a kid or you're a grandparent, there's something that you can get out of it. There's so much entertainment now that that is popularized in movies and TVs that is for such a small particular segment, which is kind of I find quite disappointing these days. But Star Wars is something for the entire family. And Star Wars is adaptable to. It's proven to be adaptable to every new generation. And I think we saw that just the other night, with Disney's got Phineas and Ferb, and I think it looks like they've got other shows that they're planning to, do Star Wars themed specials. It's those kind of things that Disney's able to do after they acquired Lucasfilm that I think will really help to ensure that Star Wars and Rebels continue to be applicable to future generations.
Absolutely, it just adds so much this world building and these exciting characters, and something you mentioned before transitions perfectly to our next question, which is regarding J.R.R. Tolkien, and you, of course, are a fan of Tolkien's universe. In your opinion, how are George Lucas and J.R.R. Tolkien's works similar?
Right, yeah. I think just so listeners will be aware of my personal interest, I've spent a lot of time in New Zealand on and off the last few years. And I am a big fan of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and Peter Jackson's movies, so I've been there for the premiere for the first Hobbit movie.
Wow!
But yeah. So I'm a devoted fan, and I've written a little bit about Hobbit tourism, but. I think it's something I hadn't thought about, but I think you're definitely onto something. There are a lot of similarities. Both Tolkien and George Lucas have spent a lifetime essentially crafting these two worlds, these two universes. It's been a life's work for each one. And my understanding is that Tolkien was influenced in writing, his villains and Sauron and the orcs from his experience in World War I and the military industries and horrors that he witnessed. My understanding is that the Empire is also based on the World Wars. In Star Wars, and I think both in Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, the important themes include loyalty and friendship. We see that particularly in Star Wars, in the original trilogy, we see that play out with obviously with Luke and Leia and Han. And Chewie and the gang. We see how when relationships fall apart, and what happens with that in the prequels. But obviously with the Fellowship and Lord of the Rings, and with the Company of Dwarves and Bilbo and the Hobbit, how pivotal friendship and loyalty is there. I think themes of hope in both franchises, that no matter how dark it gets, the importance of hanging on to hope, the idea that anybody can contribute. As I said, in Lord of the Rings, we have that with the hobbits being such unlikely creatures, being the center of these stories. And I think the fact that both Star Wars and Lord of the Rings take place in times and places that are outside of our experience, outside of the real world, that helps to make both franchises something eternal and legendary. And an interesting fact about Peter Jackson and Weta's team in New Zealand and Lucasfilm is the fact that there is this friendly respect and admiration between both companies. And Dave Filloni has talked about that, his friendship with guys over there. And I think he shared online a drawing he'd done that he'd sent to one of the guys of Gandalf and Yoda. So yeah, there is a connection in themes and also just a friendly relationship between both companies, I think.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Adam, you have brought so many fascinating things, which is just showing all of our listeners how much there is with your work and your passion for Star Wars, and you certainly delivered as promised. So we really appreciate you coming on to have a cup of coffee with us. And before we
Thank you.
Oh, our pleasure, our pleasure. And before we let you go, of course, we have to ask you our 5 questions, and I'll just go ahead and start with the first one. What is your favorite Star Wars movie?
That would have to be Return of the Jedi. I was old enough that I had a lot of energy to put into my excitement of that movie. I still remember the first time that I saw the trailer in the morning and how excited I got. It was so early, and I just ran into my parents' room and woke them up to tell them about the trailer. I'm sure they knew all about it already, but I was so excited I just had to tell somebody, even if I had to get them up out of bed early in the morning.
Isn't that the best? Those are the kind of memories that make Star Wars still stand the test of time for all of us.
Absolutely.
I also think we still do that as adults.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just get on Twitter and Facebook and tell everybody about it.
That's right.
So, Adam, who is your favorite Star Wars character?
That is really hard because I think like a lot of kids and like a lot of kids that, especially when I was younger, I'd go through a fad where, this week my favorite character is Han Solo, and next week my favorite character is Wicket, and next week it's Jabba the Hutt. So that's a tough one. I don't know if I could really choose. I do like the stinkers. I like Jabba the Hutt. I like Zero the Hutt. I was so sad that he got killed in Clone Wars. I'm still hoping to bring him back. We don't really know for sure that he's dead or not. I love Cad Bane. I think he's one of the greatest villains, bounty hunters in Star Wars. I hope we see more of him in the future. There's so many that's a toughie. If I had to pick just one though on the spur of the moment, I might say that the Hammerhead. I think his official name in the EU is something like Moma Nadon or something like that.
Yeah.
He's just a cool classic character. I love those Hammerheads.
Well, the Kenner action figure really made that figure so awesome. All those Cantina characters really.
Absolutely.
So, Adam, what is your favorite line of dialogue or film moment?
Sure. Well, the dialogue, I love a lot of Han Solo's lines, especially in A New Hope. But to be truthful, I'd have to say the dialogue that I connected the most with a kid and probably recite often as an adult are the non-English things, the little Jawa phrases, the Utini, and the heckling that Salacious Crumb does. That laugh had a profound influence on me. I used to do that laugh all the time as a kid. I got quite good at it. All the little Ewok phrases and stuff, the Ewokese, I loved all the alien dialect and noises as a kid.
Well, we actually even had the voice of Salacious Crumb, Mark Dodson, on back in early July too, and he did the voice for us a couple of times. Really, really, really fun.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, Adam, if you collect, what is your favorite collectible that you own?
Oh gosh, that's hard. on and off. I have been a bit of a Kenner Hasbro action figure addict, so I've had to try to keep that under control. I think, so of the original figures, again, I really like the Hammerhead. He probably personifies my feelings and my experience with the Star Wars, with my earliest memories, or any of the original Kenner Cantina alien figures. But I do like the new. They're not new now, but the more recent vintage collection that Hasbro has put out, and I certainly hope certainly hope they'll reinstitute that in the near future. I think the assumption is they will when Episode 7 is released, that they'll revive that line. But I think of their new figures that they put out, that new vintage collection Gamorrean Guard with the removable helmet and the three weapons and that fuzzy furry tunic he's got on, that is pretty cool. That's near museum quality a piece right there. So that I've got a few of those.
I very much agree. You're certainly a man after my own heart, and I'm hoping that if they do reintroduce the vintage line, that they will put prequel characters in the Kenner style. That would be awesome. Absolutely, yeah. So, Adam, what particular messages or themes about the Star Wars saga resonate or speak to you?
Well, I think the most powerful is the theme of sacrifice, love, and redemption. The fact that we've got 3 movies, if you separate them out, of the original trilogy that are all about the redemption of one of cinema's greatest villains, and the love and sacrifice that his son goes through to try to save him. That's really powerful. And the idea that the way the main characters are sacrificing themselves for each other, with Han, Leia, and Luke, again and again. Those are great, powerful themes. The idea that there is always hope, no matter how dark things get. In the end of Revenge of the Sith, everything is destroyed and gone, but there's still hope. So I think that's a great, and the idea that everyone has value. Every person has value, no matter how small and no matter how insignificant they are. That Yoda says size matters not. I think it was maybe the very first episode of the Clone Wars where that Yoda establishes that all of the clones have value as individual people. That it could have been very easy to have dehumanized the clones, at least starting out, and treat them like robots and non-humans, and like they don't have value because they're just copies of each other. But the fact that each one has value, that's a wonderful message. So yeah, there's a lot of really, really good themes in Star Wars.
Beautifully said, my friend, and very, very true. And one of the things that I think is why people gravitate towards Star Wars so much is because these are all important lessons and themes and concepts that we hope are applied to aspects of the real world, let alone a fictional universe that we love so much. So thank you for putting that so beautifully.
Absolutely.
Adam, how can folks and fans get a hold of your book and get a hold of you online?
Well, my book, both books, The Rebels Visual Guide and Star Wars What Makes a Monster, are available in stores now. So you can get them both at your local bookstore or on Amazon.com. And the best way to reach me and follow me is on Twitter. And my Twitter handle is just author Adam Bray, all one word.
Well, Adam, thank you again so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to share a cup of coffee with us. The Star Wars, The Visual Guide, and all of your wonderful books. We'll have links to them on our show notes. And thank you so much for your contribution to Star Wars universe, and fandom. And we certainly hope we'll get to meet you someday soon and shake your hand. And thank you for all the great things you've done for Star Wars.
Well, thank you, guys. It's been a real pleasure to be on with you.
Absolutely, and we appreciate all of your tweets and retweets, and you just do a great job interacting with fans, and that's another reason why it's just so refreshing to be a Star Wars fan, because more than maybe any other genre thing going on, the people who contribute to Star Wars and help to make it what it is, you are all so wonderful about reaching out to all of us, so we really appreciate that.
Well, thank you. I know as a fan myself, I really appreciate it when, everybody else in the fan community and, the people that are, involved at Lucasfilm and, everybody that's involved in making all these wonderful Star Wars projects, they are that friendly and that approachable. And I appreciate, everybody that's taken time to see me at Comic-Con and to tweet to me and to tell me what they think about my books. So it's been fantastic.
Thanks again, Adam, and fans are going to really want to pick this book up. It's full of just packed with information, all kinds of details, and all kinds of great new characters we could get to meet. We certainly thank you for coming on tonight and speaking with us about it.
Oh, absolutely.
Our topic for show number 24 is Darth Maul. What do you love about the popular Sith Lord? How did you feel about his resurrection on the Clone Wars? And what does he add to the Star Wars mythology? Joining us on this topic is Star Wars collector and editor-in-chief of Cinelinx, Jordan Mason. In 500 words or less, be sure to send us an email or MP3 with your thoughts, comments, and opinions to feedback@coffeewithkenobi.com.
We've had quite a few requests for Coffee with Kenobi t-shirts, and right now we've got a special offering going on at Teespring. We've got Coffee with Kenobi t-shirts featuring the brand new logo. They're orange, blazing orange, we call it Rebel Orange for fans out there. And Teespring offers kind of like a Kickstarter campaign. You order so many shirts and they get printed. We've got 30 shirts in order to get everything printed and out there. Right now we're sitting at 23 sold out of the 30. So get out there and order a shirt, support Coffee with Kenobi. All those efforts will be going towards recording upgrades, future distributing fees, and even more ways to tune into Coffee with Kenobi. So check it out. We definitely have space for folks who want to get on board and go past 32. So every little bit helps. So check it out. For those looking for a different style, we've got an orange, like I said, and we got a blue. We call it our Force Blue color and the ladies' tee style. So check them out. $28 a piece, and help us out and support. Thanks a lot.
I like the sound of that.
Echo 3 to Echo 7. Ano, buddy, you read me?
I saw part of the message.
I seem to have found it.
Our first email comes from Melanie Price, and she writes, back in 77, 9-year-old me bugged my mom to take me to see Star Wars. She did, and she let me see it 21 times that summer. That's a lot. At Halloween, there were no Princess Leia costumes. So she designed and made one, even styled a mohair wig so I could have the right hairdo. And I won the school costume contest. Even though I was often a fan of one, I never stopped loving Star Wars. My mom never discouraged me about it or said it was only for boys. So when I was recently promoted at my work, what did my mom do? Flowers? Nope. A card? No way. Mom got me a 31-inch Darth Vader action figure. What else could I have gotten you, she says. Indeed. One of her cool mom moments. Thank you so much for the podcast. Quickly becoming my favorite. And that's Melanie Price. Awesome story, Melanie. I love the one about the Princess Leia costume. I know a lot of my costumes came from my parents just putting cardboard pieces together and getting things to do right because of the love of their children. And I think that's fantastic. What a great story.
It's awesome. I love that she wrote that. She sent that to our Facebook email, and that was very cool to get from her. What I'm glad about is that she mentions that, this isn't a franchise that's just for boys. It's for people who love Star Wars. It's not gender specific, but it's got elements that appeal to everyone. I like this. And then her mom, who definitely got super cool Mom of the Year award, in my opinion, a 31-inch Darth Vader action figure. Congratulations on your promotion, Melanie, and thanks for listening and spreading the word about Star Wars. And once again, reminding us that Star Wars is a powerful franchise for all fans. Thank you, Melanie. Our next email comes from loyal listener and friend of the show, Wayne Barnes, and he writes, "Hey guys, Wayne here. Some thoughts on the Clovis arc and Padme and Anakin's relationship. It seems to get criticized, but I wonder if it isn't supposed to be a sweeping romantic love story more akin to the Han Leia story. Maybe we're not supposed to support it in that way. I tend to look at Anakin and Padme's relationship through the lens of it being an affair between two married people. They're both committed to other bodies, the Jedi and politics. Sure, they are married, but nobody knows. It's their little secret. They sneak around, lying to the people that they're closest to, stealing moments when they can. It's never open and honest. It's always in shadow. That has to take its toll. What's interesting to me, as we see in the Clovis arc, what appears to be problematic is when they actually get too much time together. When Anakin is around to actually see that there are other men out there, it sets them afire. Time together is the exception in this relationship. We know he's spending days and days at a times away on missions. By the time of Revenge of the Sith, there had been so little contact, we actually hear from her that she wasn't even sure he was still alive. The relationship seems to be ideal in its passing form. Less contact keeps the spark. Absence actually makes their hearts grow fonder. It's a hobby marriage, and when it gets real, with real problems and day-to-day challenges, it's out of the dream state. Lucas once joked that what split them up was something like he kept leaving his socks on the bed. Maybe he wasn't joking. That's pretty astute. Successful marriages tend to be those that deal with adversity rather than avoid it. Don't see that much here. It's amazing that a kids' show, such as The Clone Wars, can flesh out this sector of their relationship so well. While people complain that the prequels didn't portray a realistic or believable love story, I'd actually counter that maybe that's the point. Maybe it's not realistic as a love story, but as a story of passion and infidelity in the perimeter of a PG children's film. It's extremely solid. Pretend for a second that Anakin and Padme, two married individuals, had gone away to a business convention to Vegas instead of Naboo. They hang out, have dinner a few times, maybe even go to the top of the stratosphere. Then one day, there's an accidental kiss. Padme realizes what's happening, thinks of her family, and pushes him away. Anakin's confused. Time passes. The convention's about over, and Anakin decides to go for broke and pushes his luck. No dice. Cooler heads prevail. They come home from their trip, essentially returning to their normal life. And let's just say the plane starts to crash, and as they're plummeting to a certain death, they're haunted by what could have been. Nothing to lose. Now, in an uncertain future. Padme tells him her regrets, wishes she hadn't put up a wall. They kiss. Miraculously, the plane pulls up at the last second. They survive and their families meet them at the airport. Now imagine, instead of a secret wedding, we actually end the film with Padme meeting Anakin in a hotel room. Looking at it with this undercurrent, maybe we're not supposed to root for it to succeed. We don't give the same weight to their commitment to politics or the Jedi Order as we would to their spouses, but nonetheless, they are betraying those institutions. Just throwing that out there. Additional note regarding the arc, look at Anakin's bedroom compared to the rest of the Jedi. He has stuff. Lots of it. Yoda has a couple of chairs and that's it. Anakin has mementos. The poster, an in-joke about Ben Quadraneros, is actually very telling. He's hanging on to the Boonta Classic experience the way he hung on to his experiences with Padme from Phantom Menace. He keeps trophies. And that's from Wayne Barnes. Well, Wayne, thank you for this awesome email. Wayne has just a great way of looking at things in Star Wars. He opens my mind all the time to whenever I see something that he's sent our way. But I love the idea of the fact that they're committed to other bodies. When he says the Jedi and politics, those are the bodies that they're committed to. An affair between two married people. And he's really right on. I didn't really think about it this way before, but the fact that their relationship, clearly not a traditional marriage, And there's a lot of absence makes the heart grow fonder because they're never together, but they don't get the chance to grow and together and learn and love through ups and downs of reality, because half the time he's at war in the Clone Wars. That's not to say they don't have a lot of quality moments, that they're not in love, because I'm not arguing that, but I am saying that there's definitely a fantasy element inside the fantasy that Wayne points out really interestingly. It'd be interesting to hear what our blogger, Becca, who's also a great blogger for the Cantina Cast. Hey, Mike and Joe, what's up, fellas? High five. It'd be interesting to see what she thought of this email.
Definitely a high five. And I will say as well, just reading through this too, is, yeah, that connection of having that traditional marriage is not what we think it is. I think we always hear the word marriage, we compare it to the traditional marriage of two people. And this is obviously wartime. Makes me think of, husbands and wives that were going off to World War II, or even now, the Iraqi war and the current war, and just leaving their families and the relationship they have coming back, and are in dispersing between going on tours and things like that. And the brokenness that's there, and that connection is very straining, And he brings up some great points here. I'm really glad that our listeners write in and give us such passionate emails. That they obviously shows that they care just as much about this as we do as fans, and just they always seem to throw their hat into the ring as far as giving their feedback, and it's always something that I am impressed and I've never heard before, so I really enjoy it. Our last email comes from Jeff Rooney, and he says, I mailed your show by clicking on the album art on the podcast app. Thanks for including it. It makes it so easy to email our show. He has a quick question. He asks, I had an idea to grow the Star Wars fandom leading into the release of Star Wars Episode 7. Why don't all Star Wars fans encourage all friends and family members to watch the original trilogy at least once, then maybe invite them to see Episode 7 with that fan, if possible? With the use of Facebook and larger mix of crowd of Facebook friends with varied backgrounds, I'm noticing more people mentioning that they have never seen any Star Wars movies. I think we need to nicely do what we can to change that. What do you think? Can we make this initiative on your podcast? Jeff Rooney. Certainly, Jeff. It's I think anybody who hasn't watched the films should be introduced to them by any means, by any viewing order that they feel comfortable doing, and any checking out the Clone Wars or any whatever the age range is, they can certainly jump in at any point and enjoy it. I think. I think as far as banding together as podcasts, I think that's definitely something that all Star Wars podcasts strive to do. Just to include friends on Facebook and obviously family members and fans alike, just to be able to involve each other with Star Wars. We build into Episode 7. But yeah, I would definitely encourage. I've got some of my younger kids who haven't seen the movies kind of in their full, if you will, and be able to really appreciate them as fans. And I would definitely love to sit in theaters with my kids and get their reactions on Episode 7 and how everything connects. And I just look forward to all that. And just to be able to, I guess he's kind of promoting to kind of transcribe that and do a podcast of some kind. And it would be kind of neat to see like a before and after. I know, Dan, you and I had talked about maybe doing a pre Episode 7 showing, a pre-episode show before watching Episode 7, and then recording right after, just to kind of balance the thoughts and get immediate reactions.
Yeah, still trying to kind of put that together and figure out how to do something of that nature, because that would be great. I'd love to do it from the theater, but who knows where we'll be when it's time for Episode 7 to premiere. But I like the idea too. I've been rallying for a long time to try to get people who have not seen Star Wars in the classroom or with my family and friends, and most of my friends have seen it. I'm still trying to get my wife to get through all 6 of them, and honestly, I think it's more fun to watch it with her on the big screen. So I'm still hoping that they will release the rest of the films in 3D in theaters. No idea if that's actually going to happen in the near future or not at all. But I agree. Let's grab your friends, your family, your loved ones who haven't seen Star Wars, and make it even more of a strong community than we already have, and And that's kind of one of the things that makes the world go round as far as Star Wars fandom, getting everybody involved. So great ideas here.
Chewie, get us out of here!
If you would like to respond to our question of the show, have a comment, or just want to say hello, send us an email or MP3 at feedback@coffeewithkenobi.com. Or if you have a specific question or comment for either of us individually, email us at danz@coffeewithkenobi.com or coryc@coffeewithkenobi.com, or visit us at coffeewithkenobi.com and click on the Contact Us section, or comment on one of the stories featured on the site. If you enjoy the show, please write a review in iTunes. You can also like the show on Facebook at facebook.com/coffeewithkenobi, as well as keep up to date on our Twitter feed at twitter.com/coffeewithkenobi. You can also find us on Tumblr at coffeewithkenobi.tumblr.com. If you enjoy the jazz music, download the album Eye to Eye by Steve Torok on iTunes.
Give the evacuation code signal.
That's it for show number 23 of Coffee with Kenobi. A big thank you to Adam Bray for having a cup of coffee with us and discussing Star Wars Rebels, the visual guide. Be sure to check out our show notes for a link on how to purchase this great resource for Rebels.
Thanks to Rob of the Bearded Trio, to everyone who contributed to this show, and to all of you out there who listen to and email Coffee with Kenobi each and every week. Don't forget to send us your comments and opinions on the topic for show number 23, Darth Maul.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
There's no one here. Move along. Move along.